Hi, I'm Brian Smith. You know, when I first came to America, I couldn't find any sheepskin footwear. And I was amazed because back in Australia, it seemed to me that every other person had a pair. I used to have them when I was a kid. In fact, I wore them to school. It's not like it's cold down there either. In fact, you'll hardly find any snow there. But it's casual, comfort footwear. And the lifestyle here in America is so similar to Australia, I just figured that if I brought them over here, they'd be a hit. And you know, I was right.
Hey everyone, so as the title states, this is a unboxing video for my new Uggs Classic Tall in chestnut color. And honestly, this really isn't a unboxing because I already have the shoes out of the box.
My name is Horace, and I'm the Mindset Expert. Today we have an extraordinary guest with us. We're joined by Brian Smith. Brian is the founder of Ugg Boots and also the author of Birth of a Brand. He's also an international speaker and coach. Brian, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Harris, my pleasure.
So tell me this. You were an accounting major and a surfer in Australia, and you became an extremely successful business owner. Can you describe what made you quit your job and come all the way up to California to kind of chase your dream?
Sure. I hated accounting. I should never have gone into it, but you know, my parents sort of coerced me into it. And because I was working for an accountant during the day and schooling at night, it took me 10 years to graduate. And the day I graduated is the same day I quit being an accountant. And I was sitting around Australia wondering what to do, and it sort of struck me that all the cool trends were coming out of California, like, you know, waterbeds and Levi jeans and all the surf brands that were big in Australia were coming out of California. So I thought I'd go to California and find the next big thing to bring back to Australia. And I was there for maybe, 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, and still hadn't found it. And my buddy was over we were going to go surfing up at Malibu, and he brought the latest issue of Surfer magazine with him, and I was flicking through the pages and found this photo. It just stopped me dead. It was this pair of sheepskin boots, like in front of a fireplace. And I went, oh my God, there's no sheepskin boots in America. And at that time, I would say 1 in 2 Australians had some sort of sheepskin footwear, you know, whether it was slippers or boots. And I just, you know, looked at my buddy and said, oh, Doug, we're going to be instant millionaires. So that's how simple the birth of the brand was.
So you never intended to stay in America? You intended to come to the United States, find something to bring back to Australia, right?
Yep.
And
that's I was just going to say, that's a really good lesson for you know, people who might be listening who are wondering what can I do with my life? You know, how am I going to find the next big thing? The best advice I can give is just get out of your existing environment. Because when you travel, you see opportunities that are there that the people who live there just grew up with, so they don't see an opportunity. They just know that that's how life is. And, you know, even Christopher Columbus brought tobacco back from the Orient, you know, otherwise you would never know about that. So getting out of your environment like I did made it really, really obvious that, wow, there's no sheepskin boots over here. Let's look at that as a big market, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. But your ideal market when you first started it, because in Australia, I know they were used for surfers, and, you know, you wanted them in surf shops because the whole intent was after you surf, you wear these sheepskin boots. And now we see Uggs on every single person, whether it's 100 degrees out or minus 20 degrees out.
I know. Well, I didn't start out thinking I was going to go to surf shops. I got there because the shoe stores wouldn't even look at us. They were going, you're crazy. Sheepskin in California, that'll never catch on, And so it was after I was coming back from a shoe show in New York, like the second show, and nobody spoke to me for 3 days because they didn't even understand what product I had. It was then that I thought, well, how come all my buddies in California think it's the hottest item of all? And it struck me that all of these guys were surfers, and they had all been down to Australia in the 60s and 70s on their surf trips, and they all bought 4 or 5 pairs of boots back for their buddies. So within the surfing community, it was really well known, and so that just became the easiest point of entry, or you heard the saying that going after the lowest hanging fruit. That was the only reason it started off in the surf market, was because there was already an awareness, and it took years to even catch on in the surf market in a big way.
All right, awesome. So this was, I think, one of the breaking points of your company. I met you at Secret Knock, and I met held by Greg Reid, and I paid to your talk. And you mentioned, and this is something that absolutely amazed me, that you went from making $30,000 with the company in 3 years.
Yeah, don't stop there. I'll stop there, and I'll tell the story. Otherwise, you can wait. Okay, so here's the deal. The first year, we thought we'd sell just masses of these things. We sold 28 pairs, exactly $1,000, and again, it was because of that lack of awareness, and this is just before we'd really hit the surf market, and we ended up going out to swap meets, and I would sell boots out of the back of my van, when I was after surfing at Malibu, and I got a really big trade going, but it was $30,000 for that next year. So I hired these really good-looking models and put them on the beach at Wind and Sea, and perfect hair and perfect boots and perfect sunset, and sales the next year, $30,000. So the following year, I got more expensive models and better photographers, but again, the sales $30,000. I just couldn't crack it, and it wasn't until I was having a beer with one of my surf shop owners, one of my customers, and I was explaining my problem, and he just called out to the back of the shop, "Hey, you guys, come out here!" And all these little 12, 14-year-olds came out. So what do you guys think of Uggs? And they all said, "Oh, those Uggs, man, they're so fake. Have you seen those ads, man? Those models, they can't surf." And it just stopped me like a rock, because I realized, oh, my God, I've been sending the wrong image to my target market. And so a couple of days later, I called up the buddy of mine who was running the National Scholastic Surfing Association. I said, "Hey, Pete, any of these guys going to go pro soon? Because I can't afford any big names." And he gave me 2 guys, Mike Parsons and Ted Robinson, and I started just following them to these surf spots, to Black's Beach and Trestles and stuff like that. And I just with my own camera, a little Canon Sure Shot, and I started putting those ads in the newspapers in October and November, and that's when the sales went to $400,000, just purely because I'd been able to nail the image that all these kids wanted to see in the magazines. They wanted to be part of that photograph. They wanted to be walking down to Trestles with Mike Parsons. And that was the most important marketing lesson that I learned, and I've used that ever since. You have to want to get the readers or the viewers into your ad.
All right. That's just going from 30 to 400,000. That's quite a big jump just for changing the image. That's
amazing.
So tell me this. You also mentioned this on your talk, and it fascinated me too, that you sent a mailing list out to a stylist in Hollywood, and then a couple of months later you went to seeing all these celebrities, like Pamela Anderson was one of them, just wearing your Uggs on the beach and whatnot. And that was like free advertising for you, having celebrities people would dream of having their clothes celebrities, and you just had it done for you.
Yeah, well, it sounds like luck, but really it was, the main theme I have for every reader, if you read my book, the theme of it is you can't give birth to adults. Everything starts as a conception, and then the first act happens, and that's giving birth. For me, it was buying the samples boots from Australia was the birth, right? And then it goes into this long, long infancy, and that was my 3 years at $30,000, where there's nothing you can do to make it get up and go to college. It has to be an infant, and then it starts toddling, and then it gets into the youth and the teenage phases. But with that Hollywood group that you were talking about, I was, we were really big in surfing, big in snowboarding and ski. We were big in ice hockey because back east that's what the kids do. But I wasn't getting any Main Street, fashion stuff. And it was the buddy that came down and we were going to go surfing, at Malibu. He just said, well, why don't you try the stylists? And I said, what the hell are stylists? And he says, well, they're all the people in Hollywood who do the makeup and the hairdos and the clothing and the costumes and I said, oh, okay. So I found a mailing list, and it was about 400 people, and I sent a letter out to everybody saying, hey, if you want a free pair of Ugg boots, give me a call. Well, only about 40 did, but we sent 40 pairs of boots out, and then a year or two later, it was like that can't give birth to adults. It sort of went through its infancy, and it was slow the first year, but the second year we started seeing them out there on, in the sitcoms on TV, and the third year it was just like all of Hollywood discovered it, and it was just like every other shot in People magazine was, someone wearing Ugg boots on the streets of New York or Los Angeles, and it really, really made a huge difference to the company.
Absolutely. So how did you come up with the name UGG?
Well, I didn't make it up. Nobody knows who did. There's a few guys in Australia think they created it, but it's been around forever, and there are tons of different companies down there that all call the product UGG. They spell it all different ways, but it's unique to Australia. The rest of the world, I owned all the trademarks, and when I sold the company, that company kept policing all of those trademarks. So it's become a very, very powerful brand. And the funny thing, I get that question more than any other, and it's the only one I don't answer for.
So does it stand for anything like the letters, or is it just the name?
No, it's been descriptive. Big sheepskin boots,
Oh, okay.
It's an anomaly.
Yeah. So if you were to start a business today, let's say you're a high school or college student today in the States, would you use the same exact approach you use for UGG, or do you think you would have to do a couple of other things with all the emerging technology and whatnot?
The technology's changed since I started, but the principles haven't. The principles are still identical. Whereas I had to get, cool surfers because we were using print magazines and there was no internet then. That was the medium I used, but the principle of getting, sponsored or really cool people to wear the product or use the product, that is still working today. I mean, you get these DJs and great media artists that wear the product. That's what helps launch new brands. But if you haven't figured out, like I'm talking to the listeners now, if you haven't figured out what to do, don't beat yourself up. I didn't have a clue, and I was in my late 20s before I came here looking for Uggs. What you have to look for is try and think of something that you can do better than most other people. Because if you start doing that, you'll end up making money at it. And it may start out small. Don't bother about being small, because my first year was 28 pairs of boots, and now the company's in the billions. The last 4 years in the billions. So just start out small. The main thing is start, because the beautiful thing about being an entrepreneur is that it requires a certain amount of ignorance. If you don't have a certain amount of ignorance, you'll never survive, because if you knew what you were getting into, you would never start. And that's a real anomaly. But I love the fact that all these entrepreneurs start out, they're going to change the world, and they don't have a clue what's coming. But the beauty of it is, the minute you start out, the universe conspires to work with you. That's a very, very ancient saying, that the universe will conspire to work with you, but you must be in motion. if you just sit around dreaming of what you're going to do, nothing will come your way. But the minute you start out, it's amazing all of these things that just sort of fall in your lap that you go, oh, my God, that's exactly what I'm looking for. Oh, my God, look at that. That I can use that. And it's uncanny how fast it'll start to accelerate once you take action.
Absolutely. So tell me your thoughts on this. It's a saying, and it really stuck with me at Secret Knock. But someone mentioned that it's not so much getting to the top of the mountain, it's the journey in between that's all the fun. There are speed bumps along the way, but it's the journey that develops you. Can you kind of explain your thoughts on that one?
That's exactly what I was just saying in different words. You know, once you start out, that's really where all the fun is. I read a quote this morning. I'll see if I can just hang in there a second. Oh no, I can't find it. But the life is the journey, and even if you start out with a business and a product, that's not life. Life is having fun with your friends. It's, you know, being with family. It's what you do every day is your life, and the business is just a means to make some money. Generally, it is, and money isn't the end result. Money is just freedom to travel, freedom to buy nice things, freedom to do. But money doesn't make you happy. Your life has to make you happy. And if I have to give the most critical piece of information to your listeners, is that you have to try and get happy in your life, and then treat business as just something that you do while you're passing time.
Absolutely.
I've been guilty of the other, where UGG became my obsession, and luckily I've had lots of tons of friends all along the way, but I have learned that life is what you do every day to make you happy, and then business is just something to help get some money in the door.
Absolutely. So you mentioned at the beginning that businesses kind of go through life cycles. You have your baby, then your toddler, then your teen, basically
right.
Life cycle. So why did you decide to sell UGG to Deckers Outdoor, I believe, a corporation?
Yeah, Deckers. Yeah. Because there were two reasons. One, it got too big for me to finance. If it was a product that sold 12 months of the year, I would still own the company. It would be a piece of cake. But we had to build up for inventory for $6 or $7 million. When it got up to a $15 million company, we'd have to have $6 or $7 million worth of product to ship before the season even started, and that required a tremendous amount of capital. Because the company was doubling every year, it was going from $1 million, then I'd need $2 million, then I'd need $4 million, then I'd need $8 million, and it just I could see that I didn't have the ability to capitalize that sort of growth. So my buddy Doug Otto, who started Deckers Corporation, back when I was selling boots out of my van at Malibu, he was selling these sandals called Deckers, triple Decker sandals, and he had taken his company public with a product called Teva sandals, and I knew he was sitting on $30 million in cash, and so I saw him and I said, hey Doug, your business dies every winter, and my UGG business dies every summer. Let's put them together. And the deal we did was, we just bought the whole business for cash, which was like me going public without all the pain of having to go public. It was perfect. And so I cashed out. But the other part of it, and this was also very important, is that I'm a really good business starter. I love the risk. I love the unknown. I love the uncertainty. And when my business got up to 8 to 10 million, and then 15 million, everything became about committees, and everybody's got to have a say at the table. And when I wanted to do a bright green color, for instance, we'd end up with gray because that was the safest from everybody around the table. And I couldn't stand that type of decision making. So it was a really good time for me to sell for both of those reasons.
Yeah, so you weren't happy anymore with
I wasn't. Yeah, I've learned to live by two things. Does it energize me and does it inspire me? And I was not being energized by that group, and all the inspiration I'd bring would just get sucked down to this mediocrity. And so I just chose not to work in that environment anymore.
All right. And then my last question is, you gave me this card, and not only me but several people, this card at Secret Knock. And you carry this card everywhere with you. What is this card, and why? What does it mean? Why does it mean so much to you to carry it around everywhere?
With the 4 sayings, the 4 principles? Okay. Yep. That's great. I'm glad you brought that up, Bill. We haven't really talked a lot about, like in my book, I go through a whole bunch of the highs and the lows of the business, and we haven't really talked about any lows right now. We've mostly talked about the high successes, but there were some desperate times. I lost control of the company twice. I almost gave up twice, and but there were these 4 sayings that I wrote out of a book like 25 years ago, and I carry them forward in my daily planner every year. I've still got it in my daily planner today. And there are 4 statements. The first one is feast upon uncertainty, then fatten upon disappointment, and then invigorate in the presence of difficulties. And the last one is enthuse over apparent defeat. And what those 4 statements do, every time I get down and I'm, worrying if I'm going to survive or why isn't it working better, I pull those things out, and instead of being a victim and whining about, oh, poor me, life's not fair, each one of those statements, feast upon uncertainty is like that's the thrill of the business that I like. Fattening upon disappointment. Well, you're never going to win every battle, so every time you lose, you just got to go, okay, well, how can I benefit from that? And you figure out what you might have done wrong, and you adjust for the next time. And enthusing against apparent defeat is the best one, because defeat is never a real thing until the day you give up. As long as you're still in there battling and trying to overcome every obstacle, you will never, ever see defeat. And so anyway, those 4 statements are in the book, along with a bunch of other really great quotes and a lot of just a lot of really, really good advice on how to get started in a business, what to look for, how to find a product or a service, how to start out, because everybody thinks you need a lot of money and a business plan and millions of dollars of backing, and well, you don't. You can start out of your garage, and especially with the internet today, if you put a really good presence out on the internet, nobody's going to come and check if you're working out of your garage or your bedroom. It's just the most amazing thing. So the bottom line is, buy my book and just learn how to get started, and you'll just love the life that comes your way.
Absolutely. So the card that you're mentioning, it's on this video now, and also the link of the book is going to be below the video and also as well as on this video for anyone wanting to get the book. It's called Birth of a Brand. Great book. I want to read it. I have it. It is actually my very next book I'm reading after I finish the current one. I got about 20 different books from Secret Knock. Great.
Right. I know you did. That was a great session. Yeah. Yeah, and it's available. You can go to my website, which is Brian with an I, B-R-I-A-N, briansmithspeaker.com, and you can also download some little quick videos that I've done about how to get started, and get a free chapter of the book if you want to read a free chapter before you buy it. It's all there on Amazon or on my website at Brian Smith Speaker.
Sure. What I'll do for everyone who's listening is I'll put both links on the video as well as on the bottom in the description. Feel free to click on the link. I guarantee you'll have a blast. I've skimmed the book already. I had to do it right when I got that book. I really enjoyed your talk. Thank you so much for doing the interview as well. I feel like I've learned a lot. Biggest thing is always stay happy and energetic.
Yep, that's a critical one.
And I wanted to thank you again for joining us today.
Hey, my pleasure. Thanks a lot for having me.